Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 7th regular meeting of the Rockville Center Board of Education. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Emergency exits are on the back on either side. Any correspondence that can be posted has been posted. Are there any students that would like to come to the mic this evening? Opportunity for students are next. Come on up.
Good evening, everyone. There we go. Good evening, everyone. Today we stand before you and feel our excitement and hope as we embark on a journey that has long been envisioned by many Southside Cyclones students. I am honored to discuss our proposal to officially establish a varsity dance team as recognized sport at Southside High School.
As some may know, this dream has been nurtured by dedicated past students who have tried tirelessly to bring a dance team official school sport. Their passion and perseverance had laid a strong foundation for what we strive to achieve today. We are proud to say that we took this dream one step further by securing approval for our club under the guidance of our advisors, Ms. Ferrara and Ms. Nordham, and our supportive athletic department and Board of Education.
Why now? Why is this the perfect time? As we look towards the future, we anticipate an influence of talent dancers entering our high school over the next few years. We started the season with 15 dancers, and after our first dance at homecoming, the number has now increased to 27. This presents us with an incredible opportunity, not just for those who already love dance, but also for those who wish to explore it further. A formal varsity team will provide these young individuals with exposure, not only team dynamics and athletic training, but also to value life skills such as discipline, commitment, and creativity.
Moreover, establishing a varsity dance team will empower our students academically and socially. They will learn about teamwork through choreography, establish a good work ethic by practicing, understand cultural diversity through various dance styles, from hip-hop to jazz, and gain confidence in performing in front of audiences. These experiences lay crucial groundwork for those who aspire to pursue collegiate-level teams like UDA and NDA.
We have devoted ourselves wholeheartedly over the last 2 years towards making this a visual and a reality. Researching best practices for successful programs across the country, connecting with experienced mentors in dance education, and rallying support from students eager for more opportunities in their extracurricular activities.
Your approval today would represent recognition and significant progress within our community. We can nurture talent that thrives beyond high school,
while creating lasting memories alongside teammates by embracing a varsity dance team as part of our athletic program here at Southside.
Let's pave new pathways together. Create space where every student feels empowered through movement and celebrate the sport we call dance. We invite administrators and teachers to join us in supporting this initiative so further generations can experience all that being part of a dance team offers.
In conclusion, I will ask you, will you support our vision? Will you help us turn dreams into reality? Let's unite as one community, the Southside Cyclones, and take this leap forward into something extraordinary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, girls. Thank you for being here, and thank you for advocating for something that you're so passionate about. A few of us were at homecoming, and we loved watching your dance. It was awesome. Mr. Gavin, I'm going to ask you, there's a process, as you know, for this, and when students come to us with things that they're interested in advocating for. So I'm going to ask Mr. Gavin to just walk us through that process, steps in the process, okay?
Sure. So usually what we do, just like you get ready for a performance, we have to plan and prepare, right? So one of the things we're doing this year is we're looking at all of our health, PE, and athletic activities. So Mr. McGuire is already talking about what other options we could be potentially doing. He's starting that process at our next board meeting. one of the recommendations would be for, I'm going to ask him to study what the outcomes would be with a dance team. What does it cost in terms of budget? Because that's always important, right? What would the competitions look like? Who else on the island would be available for competition? And what that season might look like, who would it draw from? There's a ton of different things that we want to make sure that if we're going to do this, the board makes a decision knowing how much it's going to cost and what they're going to get. Does that make sense? Yeah. So one of the things we did really well last year was listen to you guys and then meet with Ms. Farrar and your advisors to make sure that we had a clear understanding of what that was. We're going to do that again, this time again with an eye for what would it look like if there was a competitive team. So while I'm not promising right now, I am saying that we're going to explore and we'll listen and we'll continue to talk with you. Awesome. Fair enough?
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Gavin.
No
Any
problem.
other students like to come and address the board at this point? Okay, thank you. Mr. Gavin, Superintendent's report.
Oops, sorry. Okay, thank you. First and foremost, I'm going to skip to number 2. Our dance club participated in Homecoming Day festivities for the first time this year. It was great to see how the board's support for student voice has come to be come to develop a very successful and engaging club. See, I already had it written down. Number 2, playoffs. Good luck to our girls volleyball team where we're playing right now as we speak. Our football team, our swimmers, and our cross-country runners as they gear up for the playoff run. Go Cyclones. We also want to recognize the fact that our field hockey players are celebrating their undefeated inaugural season, and they are celebrating at their team dinner tonight. Another example of when students come and advocate for themselves, that a responsive board has created wonderful opportunities for kids. I do want to shout out our administrative team, Dr. Moriarty, our directors, our principals, Marie Dalton, Mr. Murphy, and all of our faculty and staff for a wonderful and productive and engaging day of learning on our Superintendent's Conference Day this past Tuesday. Thank you, everyone. It was a really cooperative effort where we were looking to come together and examine curriculum, best practice, learn new things, and all with the gauge of trying to make sure that we're creating great new experiences for kids. This coming Monday is Veterans Day. Celebrating Veterans Day is a time to honor the bravery, dedication, and sacrifices made by those who have served in the armed forces to protect our freedoms. It reminds us of the resilience and commitment of those who risk their lives for the safety and well-being of others and our entire nation. Veterans Day provides us all with an opportunity to express gratitude to the veterans in our lives and in our community. Regionalization. There has been some question about what this is. New York State sort of gives a little background. New York State has been asking local districts, such as Rockville Center, to cooperate with their local BOCES superintendent to collect and share information about the types of programs offered in each district. This initiative has been known as regionalization, and it's intended to encourage local districts to seek out collaboration and shared services, which is something we already do here in Rockville Center. NYSED is asking our local Nassau BOCES superintendent to coordinate this conversation here in Nassau to see if there are other districts and other areas where districts may collaborate and perhaps generate some efficiencies. There have been some social media comments that suggest that by participating in the conversation about regionalization, that our district and our board have ceded their authority to BOCES, or that for some reason it is the intent of New York State to create merged districts. That is not the case. The Commissioner and State Ed oppose merging districts. This proposal for regionalization was in response to smaller upstate districts whose enrollments have declined significantly over the past few years where they cannot afford advanced classes. That's not the case here. We have IB classes, we have AP classes, we have dual enrollment classes with Stony Brook, with Malloy, and with other colleges. So here on Long Island, and Rockville Center is just emblematic of it, it's not the only district that offers these programs, that is not the case. So there are some key points that our board needs to know about regionalization data collection efforts as they move forward. First, school boards can opt out or opt into any part of the proposed regionalization plan. So for example, if they came back and they said, let's have a combined dance team between multiple districts, and we were interested in that, that might be something that you would do. I'm not saying they're doing that, ladies. I'm just giving you as an example. The other thing that school boards need to understand as part of this process is that once the data is collected, that's the only mandatory part right now, is that they've asked us to fill out a report that Dr. Moriarty, Mr. Bartels, Mr. Murphy, Ms. Dalton have all been working on together to prepare so that we outline the things we do here. once the data is collected, the BOCES superintendent will convene local superintendents to discuss the findings in the data and determine what, if any, shared services might benefit Nassau County. As superintendent, I'll remind the board and the public that we already do a good deal of this. We utilize BOCES right now for shared services. We partner with other districts on busing contracts. We partner with BOCES and other districts to provide and retain special education services for students. Our high school core program is an example of this. Other districts send their students to us. We provide the program. They provide tuition. So in terms of that, as this process unfolds, we will continue to provide updates to the public and to the Board of Education. And please know that once the conversation has, local superintendents will come back. We'll come back to you and say, this is what was the findings from regionalization. Are we interested in this? We'll do it in a public way. And then we can say yes or no, or this part and not that part. So we have those options collectively as a board. It is the decision for the Board of Education for Rockville Center on how much, if any, our participation is. So again, as the process unfolds, we'll continue to provide updates to the public and to the board. And if there's anything we feel that does not benefit our students or our taxpayers, for that matter, I will not recommend that we participate. That's my first part of my report, Madam President.
Thank you. Okay, turning to items for information, we have tonight our middle school data presentation. Mr. Gavin?
We do, and we are joined here by the middle school administrative team led by our principal, Ms. Sheila McGinn. Welcome.
Thank you for having us all tonight. My colleagues and friends, Maria Lasorson, Antoinette Morgan, and I are here to give you a review of the assessment data and from Southside Middle School. Our goal at Southside Middle School is to ensure that our students are provided with experiences that help them understand their unique aptitudes and interests while meeting their physical, intellectual, social, and emotional needs. To achieve this, we regularly review data to identify areas of strength and areas that need improvement. This data analysis process informs our curriculum and instructional decisions, ensuring that our students receive the support they need to succeed. We believe the data collection should go beyond numbers and test scores, but by analyzing data from various sources, including the students, the classes, the building and district levels, we can gain a comprehensive understanding of our students' needs and make informed decisions to support their growth and development. Tonight, we'll discuss the different types of data we have used and the work that this analysis contributes to establishing learning goals and instructional decisions for our students. This is our mission statement. And in the middle years program, students are engaged in student-centered inquiry across all curriculum areas. The students are taught to examine and understand the types of learners they are. Through approaches to teaching and learning, students develop skills that have relevance across the curriculum and help the students learn how to learn. These skills include communication, social interactions, self-management, research, and thinking, which will assist them in their academic journey through high school and beyond. The approaches to teaching and learning skills and the learner profile traits through the MYP framework provide us with a common language that students and teachers can use to reflect and discuss the process of learning. The MYP approaches to teaching and learning, along with the IB learner profile, promotes holistic development in the whole child, preparing them for future challenges. The ATL skills are communication, which is the effective sharing of ideas and information. The social is collaboration and interpersonal skills. Self-management is organization, self-discipline, and goal setting. Research is information literacy and critical thinking and inquiry. And thinking, analytical and creative problem solving. The MYP learner profile traits we're teaching or letting the students see themselves as inquirers, which would be curious and enthusiastic learners, knowledgeable, understanding of a wide range of concepts, thinkers, critical and creative thinkers, communicators, expressing ideas confidently and respectfully, principled, acting with integrity and fairness, open-minded, appreciating different perspectives, caring, showing empathy and compassion, risk-takers, willing to explore new ideas, and balanced, striving for a well-rounded lifestyle and reflective, thoughtfully considering their experiences and life. This type of learning will help us with the New York State's profile of a graduate. We're familiar with this type of approach because we use the MYP framework. One way that we assess our students is through the New York State ELA and math assessments. The New York State Ed Department uses performance levels 1 through 4, and these are the descriptions that are given to us by the State Ed Department. We focus on levels 3 and 4, where all learners should be. Level 3 signifies that the student is proficient in the area for their grade level. Level 4 signifies that students are performing above grade level. But it is important to note that level 2 students are still on track to meet high school graduation requirements. To gain valuable insights into student performance and inform our instructional decisions, we employ a variety of data analysis reports. These reports serve as powerful tools for educators, enabling them and us to refine teaching methods and enhance student learning. By pinpointing knowledge gaps, assessing the effectiveness of assessment items, and identifying common misconceptions, teachers can customize their lessons to meet the specific needs of their students and ultimately improve overall academic performance. This chart displays the performance of our students on last year's state assessments, along with the number of students who took the assessment. Most of our students in Math 6 and 7 achieved scores 3 and 4, indicating they met state standards. However, Math 8 and Science 8 students performed at a lower level. In ELA, over half of our students met state standards. Additionally, a significant number are on track to meet the requirements for high school graduation. There is work that we still have to do in ELA, Math 8, and Science 8. Last year's Math 8 and Science 8 classes were the first time we had these courses, and we continue to review curriculum and instruction in these areas to ensure we're making improvements for next year. Participation in the testing is also important to note. These are the participation numbers from last year's assessments. The numbers of student participation is definitely rising, as you will see in the next slide. This is a culture shift for Southside Middle School and the district. We're consistent with middle schools across the county with grades 6 through 8 having low levels of participation. Although we did have a significant refusal rate, the trend that we are seeing is there are less students opting out of the New York State assessments in all grades. This helps us by giving us a larger representation of the performance of our students. The increase in participation increases our sample size, giving us more accurate understanding of student performance through the assessments.
When we look at ELA in comparison to the region, we recognize that there is work to be done. The encouraging upward trend in math scores observed in 6th and 7th grade serves as a positive example we aim to emulate in ELA and Math 8. The growth indicates that our students are making significant strides in their mathematical understanding and skills. By analyzing the factors that contributed to this success, such as effective instructional practices and targeted interventions, we can identify strategies to foster similar gains in ELA. By implementing these strategies and providing students with the necessary resources and support, we can cultivate a culture of academic excellence that benefits all learners. As the New York State assessments are one snapshot of our student performance, we need to acknowledge that students face unique challenges which could potentially affect their performance level. Additionally, technical difficulties with computer-based testing can sometimes arise, potentially leading to lower test scores. By acknowledging these potential hurdles and our increase in participation, we can dive deeper into different reports that allow us to look at each individual child, their strengths and areas in need of support, instead of the entire grade level at a glance. The data illustrated in this chart shows a decrease in the percentage of students scoring at levels 3 and 4 in the ELA assessments, which represent proficiency and mastery of the subject matter. This trend signifies the need for attention and strategic intervention to improve student performance in ELA. In the upcoming slides, we will discuss a detailed action plan that outlines the specific measures we will implement to address this issue and ensure that our students achieve the high levels of academic success they deserve. We completed the same analysis for math. Looking at these trends, we see that we are consistently above the region. In part of the intensive work with curriculum and instruction review, we see more students consistently performing at a higher level. Now we will take a look at the data for our NWEA assessments.
Another assessment that we use to gather student data are the NWEA assessments, which are designed to target a student's academic performance in math and reading. These assessments are adaptive and tailored to an individual's current achievement level. The NWEA affords each student a fair opportunity to show their ability and knowledge in each of the assessment areas. The test shows student strengths as well as areas of instructional focus. These assessments are administered 3 times a year in grade 6 and 2 times a year in grades 7 and 8. By assessing our 6th grade students 3 times a year, we collect more data that shows us how our students are doing with their transition to middle school. Historically, all students take the NWEA assessments. The NWEA assessments allows our students to be more involved in the assessment process. For example, we use Map Accelerator in 6th grade math to see their progress over time. Math Accelerator can also help teachers differentiate instruction and provide tailored support for students, whether they are above, on, or below grade level. This slide shows that 50% of Southside Middle School students perform in the 64th percent achievement range. More of our students perform within the top quartile nationally, with over 35% of our math students scoring in the top 75% of the nation. In Southside Middle School, we have 12% or less of students that perform in the lower 25th percentile. Here we take a look at the district's RIT scores versus the national norm in reading from fall 2023 to spring 24. The RIT score represents a student's achievement level in a given moment in time and helps measure their academic growth over time. The NWEA reading score for grades 6, 7, and 8 provide valuable insight into student reading comprehension abilities. This data shows that our average RIT score is typically above the norm. This slide shows NWEA math scores from fall 23 to spring 24. We are historically above the national norm in math every year, and the trend continues to move in that direction. Not only are we above the norm in the fall, our students increased those scores last spring. So now let's discuss how Southside Middle School is performing on the Regents exam.
Last year's 8th grade students participated in the Earth Science and Algebra Regents in June of 2024. The New York State Algebra Regents has performance levels from 1 to 5, while the Earth Science Regents has performance levels of 1 to 4. These levels are used to assess students' proficiency of the subject matter covered by the exams. Based on the data from 2024, Southside Middle School students performed above the region in achieving levels 3 and 4 in Earth Science and levels 3, 4, and 5 for the Algebra Regents exam. The Algebra Regents scores have stayed consistent by trending in the mid-90s over the last few years. Last year's Regents exam was actually given 2 weeks earlier than typical. This exam was based on the Next Generation Learning Standards, which meant that we took the time to cultivate a curriculum that reflected these standards, and the data shows our success. Our Earth Science Regent scores trend in the high 80s typically. This year we had a passing rate of 87%, which is above the region. This year, the teachers have been working on curriculum changes to implement the New York State Science Learning Standards. The new Earth Science Regents will be offered in June 2025, but we will be waiting until June 2026 because the state has given us that option. For Earth Science, 49% of our students performed at mastery. Algebra is based on 5 levels instead of 4. Our mastery level is 45%. Which means that nearly half of our students have performed at the mastery level in the Regents exams. While this is an increase from the previous year, we will continue with our work. Next steps. So after reviewing the data, we have decided to implement the following action plans. The primary objective of the action plan is to equip teachers with effective strategies to guide students in critical thinking, inquiry learning, and increased skill development in alignment with the MYP framework. We've identified specific opportunities for growth in ELA, math, and science within our curriculum. Working with the directors of math and science and ELA and social studies, we have created and implemented an ongoing process where teachers review New York State standards and curriculum and have rewritten lessons based on the data analysis. In ELA, teachers have implemented and modeled critical thinking skills, utilize graphic organizers such as TDEX, incorporate keys to literacy, science of reading approaches, employ authentic tests that connect to real-world issues, and continue to provide ongoing feedback to enhance student learning. Our teachers provide targeted practice with various types of constructed responses, questions, emphasizing the importance of understanding the prompt and developing a clear thesis statement, teaching effective planning and organizational skills, and offering opportunities for peer review and feedback. Our ELA teachers continue to do great work with our ELA consultant as well. For math, our analysis of the short and extended constructed responses revealed that students could improve in areas such as geometry, number sense, and expressions and equations. Our math teachers are working in a collegial circle for professional development to learn about and implement building thinking classrooms that can be characterized by physical learning. This year, our earth science teachers are shifting curriculum towards the New York State Science Learning Standards, which focus more on the three-dimensional instructional framework for science. Curriculum labs and assessments are being redesigned to meet these standards. Resources will be used are inner orbit and professional learning on crafting 3D assessments. Due to the New York State assessment requirements for computer-based testing, we realize this is also a factor affecting our student performance. Therefore, we are increasing opportunities for our students to practice with assessment online platforms such as Castle Learning. In addition, through professional learning on building thinking classrooms, the math department began incorporating research-based practices into their classes for a student-centered approach to increase engagement. By leveraging continued data analysis and the MYP framework, teachers can effectively guide students in making meaningful connections through the field of mathematics. At Southside Middle School, we both challenge and nurture our students and our staff. Through the new ICT model, planning and professional learning, our teachers continue to analyze data to drive instruction. We continue to engage parents in working closely with our staff through PPS meetings, with our counselors, social workers, and psychologists, and parent-teacher conference nights. Our team teaching and co-teaching approach have helped us to deploy staff so that more students are accessing the curriculum in the general education setting. Due to this change and following the MTSS model, the number of students in support classes has actually declined, which allows our students to have more choice with their schedule and take more electives. As a building, we work collegially to analyze data through professional learning, opportunities, formative and summative assessments, and progress monitoring. We look to continue to move forward and make great strides and grow on this journey. Thank you. My work here is done.
Thank you, Ms. McGinn, Ms. Lasorsa, Ms. Morgan, for being here and for sharing the data with us. I'll turn it over to the board for questions or comments.
We're all good. Okay.
I'll go first. Thank you for your data presentation, and I appreciate the way you started with orienting us in terms of the IB learner profile, the goals, the mission of the middle school, and certainly there's a lot to be proud of here. We're very proud and impressed with the growth of math and how we see the trajectory going in exactly the right direction. I'm wondering, in terms of the state tests, that section that you talked about for students in grades 3 through 8, we see a trend of more students taking them. Do we feel is it the same group coming for the ELA tests and the math tests? Is it the same group opting out, or do we see difference there in those cohort comparisons?
There's a little, it's kind of a yes and a no. And we've come, I mean, we were like the epicenter for the opt-out movement back in the day, right? Like, and so many students didn't take the assessment. And now we kind of have where the students are picking and choosing, oh, I like math better, so they're going to take math. Or I tried ELA day 1 and now I'm not taking it day 2. You know, so it's more or less the same number of students, but it's not always the same students. And it also depends on the age. You know, by the time they're in 8th grade, they're kind of like, oh, maybe I don't have to take this test. So there's that piece too. It's a mix, right? Wouldn't you say?
I'm wondering also about the move to computer-based testing. Do you find more difficulty at the younger age with students less familiar with that, or perhaps at the older end of the spectrum where there are more distractions involved with the computer?
Yeah, I think it was kind of a mix.
It's a mix. The whole transition to computer-based testing was a big change, especially teaching the students that there's a text box, and when you write in the text box, it will expand. So I just observed a lesson today where in social studies, they were actually, the worksheet that they were doing in their stations had a text box, and they said to the students, you're going to see this on your state assessments, and the more you type, the bigger the box will grow. So those are little things within the CBT that we had to learn that we are now teaching the students, and we've implemented that along the way.
Right.
They just filled the box.
Right,
They
if
didn't
it looks
expand
this
the box.
size, then they think they can only write that long of an answer. So we don't really, there's such an issue around test prep, right? We don't want to waste instructional time with test-taking strategies, but even little sort of tips like that
Or even the
seem
math with
that
the
they would be
online.
important.
The math had the online, didn't they have the online stuff?
I could quickly speak for our ELA 6
You have to come over here.
We actually spent one full period on just showing the students that
But I mean,
each
didn't
time
have the
you type,
calculator and
the
stuff
box
on the
will
computer.
increase in size. And so for them, that was kind of a foreign concept. So the more we practice, obviously the better that they got.
Also for math, the calculator is online for CBT. It's something that the students are familiar with NWA, but then they had to carry that prior knowledge over and actually learn the differences in it. Also, just little things like the way the page scrolls, the way the page expands. So now that we're going into another year of this, we should hopefully see the increases with those skills that we had to teach and implement.
Right, so it's both, so it's in ELA and in math as well. In terms of the ELA, so I appreciate how we are addressing, it seems as if the region has some fluctuation as well, and our fluctuations tend to go in alignment there. I know we don't receive all of the test questions back, which is one of the issues with the state test. We can't exactly do a deep dive analysis into wrong answer, examination. But from the test questions that are released, do you see any trends, particularly with ELA? Are there any gaps that we need to specifically address for the ELA?
There were some that we saw with the vocabulary used in the question and the question stems. So in some of the question stems, the teachers are revamping how they're writing some of their questions. Like, if you take the Earth Science Regents exam, it's very direct. It's always the same type of question in many of the Regents exams. The assessments seem to change up a little, and an example would be, sometimes they say more than, sometimes they say mostly, sometimes they say thesis statement, sometimes they say central theme. Like, they mix, which can sort of be confusing to the students. So we noticed that in some of the question stems, that we need to reword how we're assessing when we do our assessments, how we're writing those.
That makes sense, getting to that common language so
Yeah.
they can understand and recognize. Thank you. I'll let my colleagues continue.
Hi, thanks. I'll go next. So first, thank you for being here. And I think it's great that we're seeing a rising trend in the number of students sitting for the exams, not just because it provides us better data, but I think the experience of sitting for the exam is a worthwhile learning exercise in and of itself. So I think that's a positive. I appreciate that, the acknowledgement that we have some work to do on our ELA scores. I'm just curious if the teachers, more anecdotally, are noticing things about ELA students in general that maybe they're not reading as much, or I'm just curious because we've spent the past couple of years, we did a ELA curriculum review, we've been focused a little bit on writing already with some of our professional development. So, and I know it takes time to change, but I'm curious if there's anything that the teachers are noticing and reporting that might also account for where we are currently.
The teachers have noted every grade level is like a whole different personality, so they've noting how students are, whether it's with the technology, whether it's the not wanting to read or wanting to read. We've been working with a consultant, Kate Roberts,
Right.
who's really terrific, and she's working with all 3 grade levels on working on like progressions on how we're going from A to B to C to D. So we're doing it this year. We'll be doing it consistently in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Also in trying to enhance the students' desire to read by doing book clubs and book choice and things like that. I don't know if sometimes it's the students, how do I say this? I don't know if it's the students like aptitude, not aptitude, but when they're taking the test and the test taking condition. I don't know, because we sat with these tests and we sat with, I gave the ELA teachers, and I'll use 6th grade as an example. We sat with the data, we sat with the tests. I printed out the kids and the kids' individual scores. And sometimes teachers went, oh my God, they didn't even try. Like, so there's also that back and forth. And then there's also the kids that they were like, oh my God, they did so great. You know, so I don't know if they're not really saying the students' attitudes. They're engaged. We've been in a lot of classrooms. The kids are engaged and on task, and the teachers are all working towards getting them to be. I don't know. I don't think I even answered your question.
No, I know, it's a hard
question
it's a
because
hard, right, and you only get your data, right? We're talking about data
we got
from
the data in
last year,
October.
that after those kids were in class for a full year, you think you're, not to say that you're not doing what they need, like you're doing multiple things, and I think what you said about the whole child is very important as well. I think it's hard to reflect back a year later and be like, oh, like this didn't turn out as well as I thought.
But the teachers did take, and Ms. Nisler was there also, like did take the testing and looking at the tests and what needs to change and some of it is like, this was not this year, but like one year it was fairy tales. We didn't teach fairy tales. Everybody bombed the fairy tale question. We did folk tales, you know? So it's also that sort of consistency as well. But the teachers do, I want you to understand, do take the data analysis, do take the questioning, do take looking at the questions. It is hard that they don't release every question.
Right.
Because you can't tell, why did everyone get number 19 wrong? I don't know. But they take it very seriously and they move forward and they revamp. They don't just pull the lesson out of, you know, the week of November 11th of 3 years ago and just teach it. They're revamping consistently. So we have to work more on test taking, on the numbers of kids taking the test, and how they're taking the test, included in our teaching.
Right, and I wonder if there's also opportunity for overlap into the social studies, you know, just that process of analyzing the way a question is asked. Like, I think, you know, so it's not only incumbent on our ELA teachers to put that into into what they're teaching, right? It has to be a broader conversation. One other question about the earth science results. So when you say that the algebra is given in 5 levels, but earth science is given in 4, is that the way the state releases the data? Do we have any way of breaking down that level, I guess you'd call it level 3, like the band of kids who are not getting to mastery is a very large number band, right? It spans from 65 to 84. Like 65 is very different than 84.
84.
Is there any way for us to get a breakdown of that bucket so that we can see how many of those kids in that bucket are closer to mastery versus closer to?
Guy says yes.
We can break down that data with just looking at the scores, and the state does release a conversion chart that breaks down those passes.
Because like if you look at, right, no, go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Between level, for science you have level 1 through 4, which is changing with this new exam coming, it will be a level 1 through 5.
Okay,
But for the algebra, it's 1 through 5. Level 3 is your passing level.
right.
You're on track for graduation. It gives you a range of scores that falls within a level 3, a level 4, and then a level 5, which we can disseminate that data.
Right, because I think the algebra, we have a good number of kids who are approaching mastery, which is, I think that's something to look at, right, and be proud of, but also like target those kids to see how we, And I'd love to be able to do, I know the exam is changing, but I'd love to be able to do the same for our earth science students. So, thank you. Appreciate all your time. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, and the first one kind of, I guess, piggybacks off of Dr. Downing and Mrs. Gruner's regarding our ELA scores on the state assessment. You know, it's interesting looking at numbers, and numbers can tell us a variety of stories. But one of the things I'm having a hard time seeing past right now is that in grade 6, we had 180 students take the test, which is clearly not the entire cohort, but a good percentage of it. And 81 of those students did not meet with proficiency on the test. So we're really only having just over 50% of our kids who are meeting with proficiency, which that's a concern for me. And the same is pretty true in 7th grade, where we have a similar number of students taking it, just under 180, and we had 75 who did not meet with proficiency. And my initial question was, how do we explain this? But I feel like that was asked already and kind of answered. But one of the things that, or maybe a point of notice that makes me wonder if it leads into it, I think aligns with the MYP framework. I know that we have this as a framework that we design around, and it builds us up into our IB program. So I understand the continuity of having a 6 through 12 program there. My concern, though, with the MYP and the IB is, does it really align with what New York State is actually asking from our students? Because this is a public school, and our first priority is to the New York State standards. So for example, when I see work coming home, and I'll just say in social studies, because I happen to be looking at this, very closely aligned with ELA, and I look at the questions that are being asked, they all start with the words factual, conceptual, debatable. Nowhere in the New York State framework for social studies does it ask students to ask or answer factual, conceptual, or debatable questions. It asks about sourcing, contextualization, causation, comparison, continuity, and the list goes on. If you took a New York State social studies regents, there might be 1 or 2 questions that are factual, what type questions. They're not there. And the same is true in the English. If you look at the English assessments, you look at the English regents, they're not asking these questions. So we're training our students to answer questions, which are, I'm not saying this type of a question is a bad question. All questions are good questions. But if we're not teaching our students to the standards and the skills of the content areas, it really isn't a surprise that we have 50% of them that are not able to pass these tests. Now, is the goal in life to pass a test? I wouldn't agree with that either. A state assessment is one of many assessments. But my concern is that there are so many students who are not meeting with success here. And then if we look at the NWEA, we're not seeing our students maintaining that same level of growth, where yes, we are above the region, but if you look from the fall to the spring, the gap shrinks. That's a concern for me. Just a point of notice on here. I'm also seeing in science and math, I know this year was the first year that we offered a Science 8 and a Math 8 class. And looking at how those students did on the science and math assessments, I would say it was a very good choice of their parents to place them into the Math 8 and Science 8 class. It was clearly an appropriate place for them to be. It's sad that we weren't able to get any of those students in science to pass that assessment, and that math, we only had a few who were able to pass the grade 8 math assessment. In looking at the Regents' scores, I mean, again, I'm glad that we are outperforming the region, but in looking at earth science, 13% of the kids that took that test did not meet with success, and there was a Science 8 option available for them. And it makes me sad as an educator to think about the experience that that 13% had sitting through that class, taking the test, not meeting with success. What does that do for their confidence? What does that do for them as a student of science, as a student of math? One of our board goals this year relates to family engagement. One problem that I have is that for Math 8 and Science 8, Algebra and Earth Science, all of our students are auto-enrolled into an Algebra and Earth Science class, regardless of if it is the best choice for them or not. There is no conversation. This year, no one is enrolled in Math 8 or Science 8, not a single person. And I cannot imagine that that is the best choice for every single child in that grade. I would love to have put in, as part of our goal of family engagement, having a conversation with our families from 7 to 8. These are the options that we have. These are the pathways. This is where it will take you into high school. And letting parents and their children, with conversation from the teacher, make an informed choice about placement for their child. I think it is disingenuous to just auto-enroll, that this is the pathway that we have because this is what serves the IB program. The IB has a stranglehold on our curriculum, and I don't know what else to say about it. I don't know how else to say it. Our kids have very, very few options compared to most school districts, compared to other districts that have IB. This has one pathway, one way of being, and when people request otherwise, they are told the class is not running, there's no enrollment. And if we continually tell people there's no enrollment, then no one enrolls, and we continue on our pathway to IB.
So if I can just back up to your first point of the factual, debatable, and conceptual questions. Those are 3 questions that are in each unit. Some of those questions run along 2 or 3 units of study. All those are questions that are, well, let me back up one more thing. The MYP framework is just that. It's a framework. It's not a curriculum. We write the curriculum. We, in this district, write the curriculum. Every assessment that is written, and a good point was made, I think, by Janet, saying that maybe we should look at how we're asking questions in social studies, that they're matching the ELA assessments, because we do that in science up through 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We do that in math, looking at the Regents exam as the end results. Maybe we need to be looking, we do it in math also looking at the assessments, state assessments as well. But maybe we need to look at that and incorporating. The 3, the conceptual, debatable, and factual questions are not questions that are asked every day and pummeled in. It's a thought process. It's asking the kids to become thinkers. And if you think about the debatable, persuasive writing is something that we have to teach, right? No matter what. So debatable is argumentative, it's persuasive. So it's a framework. It's not, there's no, we're not teaching, one thing we don't do is teach to the test. Maybe we should teach more to the ELA assessments, more specifically and explicitly. But we've never done that in this district. We take the questions that we write in assessments are written based on the state assessment or the math assessment or the Regents exam or science or algebra, right? Back in the day, it used to be based on what the social studies assessment was when we had them. So that's one piece. That it's a framework, it's not, we write the curriculum, and I do like that suggestion of moving the way that we're questioning in social studies to maybe complement a little bit more of what's happening in ELA.
I understand.
And secondly,
Can I just make a point? I understand that, and I understand that it's a framework, but what I see coming home is those are the questions my child's being asked. And to Mrs. Gruner's point, and to your point, I'm not suggesting we write to an assessment. I'm suggesting we write to the standards.
Well, and all of the units are written to the standards. All of the units are written to the standards, and the assessments that are given are written to the state standards. Then, to just move on, there were conversations about the Math 8 and the Science 8. There were conversations. There was communication that was sent home. There's, we give the students, we have a lunch, like assemblies, lunch study assemblies, quite a few actually, about their choices for the next year and what they can take and want to take or need to take. It was brought up at every CSE meeting. The 7th grade counselor spoke to multiple parents about it, multiple. At the beginning of the summer, we held open the enrollment until August, because up until the beginning of the summer, there were 3 or 4 students enrolled. By the middle of August, there was 1 student enrolled. And at that point, some of it also, I hope I can just say this out loud because I'm going to say it, is the students. Where do they want to be? And where do they feel like they want to be? So there is discussion and communication about Science 8 and Math 8, and there will be again this year. There wasn't the enrollment for whatever reason. We do communicate.
Yeah, I'd like to see more communication going out to parents with like an actual presentation as to what this means, because I really feel like those classes have been stigmatized at this point. And I don't think that parents understand, number one, that they need to call and request the class. And I don't think that parents understand the pathway. I mean, quite honestly, if you're not in education, I don't know how you could understand the pathway. And when we only have one entry point to calculus, same idea there too, where we could easily build entry points in at the high school to get kids to calculus. And if we really took the time to think about that and communicate that, I think we would have more children opting to be in classes that are probably more appropriate for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice seeing you guys. I started my day by driving past the middle school and saw Miss LaSorsa and Miss Morgan taking children off the back of a bus.
Jumping
This is
off
just
buses.
the call of duty for a regular day. I panicked and thought something happened, but we had a drill. So thank you for starting and ending your day with me today. A couple of things. I'm glad Janet brought up social studies. So what my question about social studies was, obviously we're seeing this kind of trend down in ELA, not just in Rockville Center, but across the board in this age group. Are you seeing that same dipping in their ability to do well in their social studies classes absent these types of assessments in that subject?
I wouldn't say necessarily. You know, I mean, that we're seeing a dip, and we're not hearing that from the social studies teachers. But we are right now totally revamping, relooking, prioritizing the social studies curriculum, and doing vertical alignment, you know, K through 12. So we're in that process.
That's good to hear. I
But
mean,
I
I'd
haven't
hate to
heard
see
the
if there was.
teachers speaking about that.
Right. I would hate to see if there was like across the board kind of dip in, you know, these kind of areas that are tied together. Science and maths are technically kind of tied together, and then we have social studies and English. When we had our elementary presentation, the principals talked about how they're giving the students more practice on computer-based assessments, which we talked about here, and we said is great because we know as they get older, they're going to have that more and more. So anything we can do, you know, not to, again, teach how to be assessed, but give them opportunities to do more things, practice ways like that, I think is a great thing because, you know, when they start taking PSATs and SATs online, 6th, 7th, and 8th, we're in this middle age now. If they're learning how to do it from a younger age, we want to make sure we're continuing doing that in the middle years. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I think it's important. One highlight for me in looking at all of this data is math in terms of, and I could see when you go to the slide that shows the years and the evolution of math over the last, like, say, 4 years. I'll credit Mr. Bartels because he's sitting right here. Adding staff and beefing up our 8th grade math teaching and strategy, I see a distinction in the data kind of ramping up there. And so thank you, Mr. Bartels, for that, for the budget for that, for the thought, for helping, because we had seen that there was some help needed there. So I guess I'm challenging back that if we're seeing that we need help a little in ELA, I'm wondering what other things we can do. You know, I don't know if it's taking some of we've added so many wonderful electives, I don't want to dilute the ones we have, but then there's things that we can be adding, maybe research components or creative writing or other things that are a little ELA based, that might play a role for students that are interested in it, want to, you know, kind of expand on those skills. But it's just something I think we should think about, and remembering our core subject matters and trying to build extra things we can do around those. And I love the robotics and I love the computer science and all the other things that are going to prepare them for life and jobs that we don't even know about. I love all of it. I just want to make sure we're still grounded in our core subjects. And now I see that we kind of maybe need to shift our thinking a little bit that way when it comes to ELA, because we have come to a point. Again, now I think that we need to look at that. So it's just a comment. I have to say, just going back to math for a second, the math department in the middle school is just fantastic, honestly. I have to shout them out. I think they're fantastic. I think they've done a great job. The team teaching is awesome. And I also want to say that the parent-teacher conferences, I think, adds a level to Erica's concern that we didn't have a few years ago. So while I know it's more time for the teachers and the guidance counselors, that does give another level for parents to sit down, and by 6th, 7th, and going into 8th, you as a parent know who your student is. You absolutely do. And when you have the opportunity, I'm just giving my infomercial for parents. When you have the opportunity to sit down with a teacher, even if it's for a few minutes, by the way, outside of parent-teacher conference, they will take your call. They will listen to you. They will email you back. But by now, by 6th and 7th grade, you know your student. And I think that those parent-teacher conferences are really important. And I thank you for the staff for doing that at the high school as well. But I encourage parents to, be paying attention through Power Schools, seeing how it's going, take the time, talk to the teachers. But even don't underestimate the time you can spend with the guidance counselor. I think that helped me, even choosing electives, that extra time spent. So just a note on that, I think we have to celebrate what we have now that we didn't even have even just a couple of short years ago. And so what I see here is a lot of evolution in a positive way. ELA is trending in a way that we all agree we want to do a little bit more on, so we're not trying to hide that at all. And I appreciate the honesty on it. And we'll try to just find ways to do, a little bit better there. But I have to say the math is I'm really, really happy to see it trending the way it is. So thank you all, and thank you for coming. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for being here, and thank you to all of our staff as well. Please send them our gratitude. Thank you for all you do for our students and staff every day. Thank you. Okay, turning to policies. Currently at stage 1, we have 4310, Superintendent of Schools.
This is really just language changes. There's no substantive change.
Correct.
Thank you.
Cleaning up.
Okay to move this?
Yes.
4320, Superintendent of Schools, Board of Education Relations. Same thing?
Yeah, no real change there.
Okay to move this as well?
Yes.
Yeah. 5150, Contingency Budget.
There's no really no change. We moved something that's repetitive to another policy, which we're going to review next month.
Okay, thank
And
you.
this is real directly from education law here.
Yes.
Okay to move this?
Yep.
5210, Revenues.
Same, no real change here.
Thank you. Currently at stage 2, we have 3412, Threats of Violence in School. You read this for the first read through last meeting. Okay to move this?
Yes.
3430, Uniform Violent and Disruptive Incident System. Same
This
thing.
is one we are rescinding.
Yep. This is one, I think there's a few, right, that we're looking to
Yeah,
rescind?
because they're no longer, it's not that we're not paying attention to them, it's streamlining the process. And this one doesn't particularly pertain anymore.
Understood. Thank you.
And also, it doesn't mean that we're not making the required reports, but it does not require it to be a policy. So in order to avoid having policies go stale or bad and having correct information, some of the policies we are removing because it's just purely law.
Thank you. Okay to move this?
Yes.
3510, Emergency Closings.
Yeah, just updating language to current practice of informing parents for emergency closings.
Okay. Okay to move that?
Yep.
3520, Extraordinary Circumstances.
No change.
No revision needed on that.
Nope.
So we'll move that at the next meeting as well. 4211, Line Responsibility. This goes along with 4212, the organizational chart. Okay to move this?
Yes.
And the chart as well. 4250, Use of Committees. This is another one that we're looking to rescind.
Right.
Yes,
it
there's
was-
another policy that says pretty much the same thing. So instead of having two policies, you only need one.
Thank you. Currently at stage 3, we have 1251, Student Voter Registration and Pre-Registration. Okay to move this?
Yes.
Yes.
3230, Public Complaints. Okay to move this for approval.
Yes.
Yes.
3250, Rockville Center Council of PTAs. Okay to move this as well.
Yes.
3272, Advertising in Schools. Move this to approval as well.
Yep.
Yes.
And lastly, 3320, Confidentiality of Computerized Information. We'll move that one for approval as well.
That's it.
Thank you to the Policy Committee. Opportunity for Superintendent, Mr. Gavin.
Thank you, Madam President. New York State Legislature has recently asked the Rockefeller Institute to conduct a year-long study on the current foundation formula for how Long Island districts across the state receive state aid. The funding for this study was included in Governor Hochul's budget for this current year. For those who do not know, the foundation aid formula is used to calculate the amount of aid the district receives from state. The main components of this formula are district enrollment, student needs. So for example, students that require special education service receive a different weighting than students that do not. And regional costs. Long Island being a very expensive region also factors into that formula, as well as our local wealth index, which means what's our property value, what's the average income in that area. While it is easy to acknowledge that it is important to look at the components of this formula regularly, it is also important to know that changes in this formula that may result in a drop for state aid for Long Island will not be warmly received. Already, Long Island districts send more tax money to the state than it receives. President Barry and I next week will be attending a meeting of Long Island superintendents and Board of Education presidents with our locally elected officials so that they hear our concerns and understand that their role to help ensure our districts do not end up with large holes in their budget. The governor has already signaled that one of her priorities is to end what is known as the hold harmless provision, which means that if a district received $1 million in state aid, that the hold harmless provision allows districts to maintain at least $1 million in state aid. It is important for our constituents to remember that Rockville Center was underfunded in terms of state aid and the state aid formula for the first 17 years of the state aid formula's existence, meaning that even though the state calculated our aid at such and such a ratio, they often did not provide that specific number. It's only in the last 2 years that we have seen our fair share of state aid according to the current formula. For community members that may wish to help us drive this message home to Albany, our elected representatives now are Judy Griffin for State Assembly and New York State Senator, our newly elected Ciela A. Bino. Both are newly elected. We look forward to working with both of our representatives on this important issue for our students and our taxpayers.
Thank you, Mr. Gavin. Something that is very important that we've been working on and staying closely monitoring, and we will continue to do so, and we could use your help as well to the community members, and we will continue to keep you updated as well. Yeah, thank you. Opportunity for board members, Ms. Messier.
Thank you. I'd like to first wish good luck to all of our student athletes who are still engaged in competition. I wish you all the best of luck at your upcoming competitions this week. Over this past weekend, I had the opportunity to attend an Eid Holiday Coalition conference, which was set up for school district leadership to talk about Eid holidays. There was also a lot of conversation about Islamophobia in school and how we can work to combat that, along with a variety of other topics. But one of my larger takeaways was really about the idea of Eid holiday observance, which also led me to think a little bit about Diwali and some of the other religious observances that some students in our district may wish to celebrate, but oftentimes have to choose between religious and family celebrations and coming to school. And as we look towards this year, both Eids, Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, both fall on weekends in 2025. But as we look at the 25-26 school year calendar, I would like us to be cognizant of the holidays that our students are celebrating and see how we can work into giving those students space to celebrate. May it be scheduling a superintendent's conference day on those days where students would be able to stay home, and we could obviously give our staff the same should they need it. Or just really looking at how we're using our school calendar days. I know every year the amount of holidays increases and it becomes increasingly hard to get our school days in, but I really would like to see that be a priority so that we're reaching out to all of the students in our district and really making sure that we see, hear, and value them and their family celebrations. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Hackett?
Yeah, first just want to say thank you to our dance club participants for coming tonight. We also got a lovely letter from them, and we love hearing from our students. So yeah, I love hearing that the field hockey team had such a great, successful season this season, undefeated. That did start with a group of students visiting us and writing to us. So again, I think student voices being heard is a really important part of what we do, and we enjoy it. So thank you to the ladies who joined us this evening. Also wishing our athletes a great, successful playoff season. Thank you to the coaches and parents for all the support. I know some of these seasons go long, and the students are working hard being students and athletes at the same time. I'd like to thank Ms. McGinn, Ms. LaSorsa, and Mrs. Morgan for joining us this evening and for their presentation. And again, I worked it into my comments, just because it fell into place here, but I really did want to thank all the staff for the PT conferences this week. Middle school was earlier in the week and high school last night, and it was very well attended. The parking was really crazy for both, you could tell. Mrs. Barry and I saw each other. There was a lot of people there. So parents are really enjoying this connection to the teachers, and the teachers, I think, have a nice touch point to share what they've learned so far about our students. So thank you to everybody participating in that. And finally, on a personal note, thank you, Mr. Gavin, Mrs. Barry, Dr. Downing, and Mrs. Gruner for coming into Manhattan and coming to my session at the NISPA conference. I really appreciated that. And I had my valuations came in. They were very good. I was very happy, and I did hear from 2 districts so far to help them. So it was time well spent, and I appreciated the support. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Gruner?
Just an echo of what's been said. Thank you to our middle school staff for their presentation, to the girls for coming and expressing their interests and their passions. I agree, parent-teacher conferences are a great opportunity, so thank you to the staff for that. And just good luck to all of our athletes, and thank you to all of our veterans for Veterans Day upcoming. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Downing?
Thank you to Ms. McGinn. Not on. Thank you to Ms. McGinn, Ms. LaSource, Ms. Morgan, as well as the elementary school principals who presented their data at our last meeting. It's essential, and I am appreciative of Mr. Gavin and Mrs. Barry for keeping us involved and updated on the plans for the regionalization survey, as well as the changes to the state aid, foundation aid formula. I agree that these 2 issues are related. I think that the New York State Education Department put forth this strengths and needs survey so that they can be prepared for when there are changes to the state aid formula. And it's essential, and I know you will advocate on our behalf, to retain local control, and to, maybe there are ways to enhance the BOCES aidable expenses that we already take part in that kind of resource sharing. But to remain, under local control, and to be sure that we are advocating in a way that opens up opportunities for our students. That's the goal. In terms of extracurricular opportunities, I was lucky enough to stop into the rehearsal for the high school showing of Pride and Prejudice, which is coming up. And I have to say, on a note related to ELA, I almost circled back during the middle school presentation. During the rehearsal, one of the students said, "Oh, Pride and Prejudice, that's one of my favorite books." And that sentence, "one of my favorite books," that's what we want to encourage, right? We want our students to be active readers, learners, and take pleasure in that and have fun while also reading novels from the early 1800s. So don't miss Pride and Prejudice, a little plug. And as well, the middle school will be offering their Broadway review. So break a leg to all of the cast and crew. I can't wait for opening night. We are also rooting on all of our athletes in the playoffs, and I'm looking forward to joining some of our elementary schools for Veterans Day for the tributes tomorrow. The high school open house is next week, November 12th, open to all, and big thanks to our staff and our students who also work really hard to make sure that this is a showcase of all the things that Southside High School has to offer. Parent University also coming up next week. I love that this tradition continues, and I'm looking forward to the learning in those sessions as well. And I also just want to thank everyone for their patience with the seemingly unending road construction. Particularly, I mean, it hits everyone, whether you walk or drive or take the bus, and it has demanded a flexibility and a patience no matter what school you are trying to get to and from. So I know we all hope that will wrap up soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations to all of our students on a successful fall athletic season, and best of luck to those who are still involved in the playoffs. And as we have closed schools on Monday, I just want to take a moment and not only thank all of the members of our community that have served, but those that are currently serving as well. And as we celebrate the ceremonies tomorrow, just keep that in mind. And unfortunately, I won't be able to attend them, but thank you for attending on our behalf, Dr. Downing. Okay, turning to opportunity for visitors. The public is reminded to address questions or remarks to the board through its president. Is requested to refrain from making any direct references to students or staff members that could be considered critical of their performance or their character. Such references to individual students or staff members are inappropriate in a public forum and should instead be conducted in private conversation with appropriate members of the staff. The public is asked to state their name and address and to please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Excuse me, Mr. Cooney, can you just push the button right in the center there? Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President. This is William Cooney, 91 Hempstead Avenue. At the July 2023 meeting of this board, a member of the public asked if male students are allowed in female locker rooms. The response given by Superintendent Gavin at the time was twofold. First, we haven't had to face that issue. And second, if that situation were to arise, we'd have to speak to the people involved, talk to the other students affected. I understand that the district now has had to face that issue, and that the policy now is that girls are permitted to use the boys' bathrooms and boys are permitted to use the girls' bathrooms at Southside High School. I have 5 questions. If it's all right, I'd like to get them out, and if you can answer them tonight, that's great. If not, I would like an answer at some point. First, does the policy apply to both bathrooms and locker rooms? Second, was the policy change discussed with the Southside High School student body before its implementation? If so, how, when, and by whom? Third, why were parents not notified in advance of the implementation of the policy change? Fourth, have any students complained about the policy change? And fifth, have any students been disciplined for complaining about the policy change?
Okay, so I think some of those questions can be addressed by council. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Harvey if she can speak to
Thank you.
them. Thanks.
In accordance with New York State law, all Rockville Center students can use the bathroom that aligns with the student's gender identity. Denying the use of restrooms or other facilities because of a person's gender identity is a violation of New York State human rights law and DASA and is unlawful discrimination. The district, however, also has available single-stall bathrooms that any student could use if they'd like to avoid using the multi-stall bathrooms. In addition to being a violation of the New York State human rights law, as of January 1st, 2025, it also will be a violation of the New York State Constitution.
Is that your answer to my question? My question was about, well, my first question was about whether the policy applies both to bathrooms and to locker rooms. Can you answer that question?
The publicly heard is not a question and answer period. I have made a statement with regard to the law.
So you're not answering my question. Will you answer any of my questions now?
Ms. Harvey, can you just distinguish between policy, board policy and New York State law, please? Thank you.
Board policy is different than New York State law. The district will comply with all laws. Board policy, and that's why one of the things you heard we said is we got rid of a policy because it was just regurgitating the law.
Okay, I think we're having a disconnect here because I asked
There's no disconnect.
5 specific questions. And so here's my question now. Will you answer any of the specific questions that I asked?
It's not a back and forth, Mr. Cooney. I think the first part of your question.
And I understand that, but
I'm
I
going to
just want
answer what I
I want a yes
can.
or a no. I want a yes or a no,
I'm going to
please.
answer what I can respectfully, okay? Okay, the first part of your question was policy. Does it apply to both bathrooms and locker rooms? So I'm
Yes.
going to ask council to answer that question.
Yes, it applies to all facilities, bathrooms, locker rooms.
Okay, thank you. The second was it discussed with students? The third was were parents notified? The fourth I missed. I'm sorry if you can repeat the fourth.
The fourth was, have any students complained about the policy change?
Okay. And the fifth was discipline, which we cannot discuss in public.
That's fine.
Okay.
What about the second, third, and fourth questions? Can I get an answer to those?
Mr. Gavin can answer those in an email? Yep. Ms.
You're not-
Harvey, is there anything else that you can address at this time?
Yeah, no, it said this is not a policy of the district. The school district is following New York State law.
All right, so one comment on that. I think your opinion of New York State law and how it interacts with the federal law on this issue is completely incorrect.
Okay.
The New York State law is in conflict with Title IX. It's in conflict with the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The Biden administration tried to rewrite Title IX to permit the kind of change that the New York State legislature has tried to implement, and it was rejected by the U.S. Supreme Court. It's also now about to be rejected by the incoming Department of Justice administration at the federal level.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dorothy Gutman, and I'm a teacher at Hewitt Elementary School. Tonight, I am here as a representative of our school to share some of the wonderful things that have been happening at Hewitt. In addition to all of the wonderful academics, I'd like to highlight some other events. This year, we have a new twist on an established idea which is showing pride at Hewitt. This stands for preparation, respect, integrity, determination, and enthusiasm. We are currently focusing on the R for respect. Students are recognized and celebrated each week for showing this trait. Some even get a trip to our new book vending machine, which is very exciting. Also introduced this year is a monthly Spirit Day. On the first Friday of each month, everyone is encouraged to dress in Hewitt wear or wear our school colors, which are red and blue. Our new Hewitt Hawk mascot often appears on these days, and again, very exciting stuff. Next, we would like to highlight some of the after-school clubs that have already started. These include Art Club, not to be confused with Art Explorers, Math Olympiads, the SAD Club, and the TED Ed Club. Our staff members who lead these after-school opportunities take time to plan meaningful sessions for our students. This month, our buddy classes will meet for our very first Attitude of Gratitude Day. They will join together to complete projects that are focused on what they are grateful for. Lastly, I would like to highlight Ms. McGovern, who has taken the reins of Hewitt with confidence and grace. Her leadership and guidance continues to make Hewitt an amazing place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roxanne Rizzi, 55 Kennedy Avenue. My first question is, aren't the parent-teacher conferences part of the teacher's contract? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, okay. I'm a teacher too. I just came from my parent-teacher conferences at home, but so I just wanted to know. About the whole child teaching, that basically means that you are teaching every child at their access point, where they're able to access information. So I agree with Erica, especially on the point that parents' wishes need to be fulfilled when they want to place their child in a particular math or science class because their child's not ready to be in an accelerated class. I have had parents reach out to me in the last over a year and say that one of two things happened. One, they were told, no, 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 you don't know. It's okay for your child. And that's not okay. And the other was basically poo-pooing their worries. That's not what we do here. It shouldn't be, at least. So parents' wishes need to be fulfilled, and they need to be able to access this information a lot better than a letter sent home in a backpack or some assemblies with lunch ladies or whatever that was, okay? Unacceptable. I also agree with Janet about teaching across the curriculum. You can't access and teach to all those standards without doing that. I'm an educator for 22 years. You must teach across the curriculum. Now I have two other questions, and it's probably for the lawyer, but I guess you'll let her know. If a child in a said bathroom is attacked or beaten or has some type of altercation by a child who is using a bathroom that corresponds with their gender identity, what will the lawyer's response be? Because I've heard from the lawyer several times, this is policy, but it's not the law. And now we're quoting yeah, she said it before in other meetings. It's not the law, but now we're quoting human rights law. I can take a kitchen sink and throw 1,000 things into human rights law. So I want to know about that situation. And another hypothetical, and this is really important to me, and probably every mom with a boy or girl. How do you handle a situation where, let's say, a girl who identifies as a boy is using the boy's bathroom and then accuses a boy in the bathroom of doing something to them? How will you handle that? There are no cameras in the bathroom that I know of. Is it a he said, or he said, she said? What happens to that child? Because he will be scarred by whatever goes down. And these children have no choice. So when we say we're protecting children, human rights, and all that stuff that sounds so nice, you're not protecting all children.
Great, we're at 3 minutes. Thank you.
Is she going to answer, or are you going to ask her to
No.
answer? No, it's all hypothetical, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it?
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Can I press this? Oh, it's
I
on
think you're
already.
good. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, don't start my timer yet. I just want to say I love a lot of these Hewitt people right here, and I'm happy to see them. Shannon Letts, 60 William Street, Rockville Center. Good evening, everyone. I felt the need to start out by saying that I'm the proud mother of 3 young children who, like all parents, loves her children more than life. I also feel the need to tell those of you who don't already know that I'm a former elementary school teacher turned stay-at-home mom. I'm starting with this because I know once I begin speaking about what I want to say tonight, some of you will label me as an unsupportive community member, it's already happened, or an unaccepting person, neither of which could be further from the truth. I love all children. I knew at a very young age I wanted to be a teacher and could not have been more blessed that God gave me 3 of my own. As a side note, if any of my children one day decided they wanted to be, for lack of a better phrase, different from my expectation of them in any way, I would still love them more than life. That said, I cannot stand by and say nothing about what's happening in our schools, specifically right now, the bathroom situation. Luckily, my children are small, and this is not something that seems to impact them right now, but I cannot sit idly by and watch this roll out that will impact their futures within our school district without speaking up. How can you be a parent, especially a parent of a daughter residing in this school district, and not have a problem with a biological male using the same restroom as your daughter? My husband is sick to his stomach, and quite frankly, so am I. I am flabbergasted that many of you think this is okay. It is not. Boys and girls locker rooms, also not okay. In areas of privacy where there are no supervision or cameras to watch, let me be clear, I don't think cameras should be in private areas. I'm just stating that there is no supervision. This is a safety issue. During the last Board of Ed meeting I attended, I believe it was Mr. Gavin who said there were or would be come September, I forget which, sorry, gender-neutral bathrooms in all of the schools within the district. I remember leaning into my husband and saying, well, this is better than the alternative. The alternative being what I've been hearing about the last couple of weeks. This is dangerous. Why were boys and girls, men's and women's restrooms, locker rooms, sports teams, and jails ever made if this was not a dangerous situation to have them all together? They were designed this way to keep everyone safe, one would think. I can't even exude the horrific thoughts running through my mind about what this could potentially lead to. Dangerous. That is the only way I can say it. And forget about the things that teenagers could be willingly doing with each other in bathrooms without supervision when boys and girls are allowed in bathrooms of the opposite sex. I've heard the word from the top is that if a student is uncomfortable sharing the bathroom, the student choosing to use, I know the word from the top is that if a student is uncomfortable with sharing a bathroom with a student choosing to use the bathroom of the sex they identify with, not the one they were assigned at birth, the uncomfortable student can use the gender-neutral bathroom. So are there enough single-stall gender-neutral bathrooms for all students who may be uncomfortable with this? What happens if uncomfortable students are late for class or missing the majority of class because they're lining the halls waiting for the gender-neutral bathroom? I would ask if anyone's asked all students about their comfort levels regarding this, but honestly, the answer wouldn't change my mind because kids are kids and most are afraid to be outspoken if what they're saying goes against the grinds and against authority. Maybe an anonymous survey of all students that they could take it home privately would help shed some light on what is happening here and how every student feels about it. I did hear that a student was disciplined for saying they were in fact uncomfortable. Whether or not this is true remains to be seen, but I really hope it wasn't. Sorry. I'm wondering if students knew...
You're at 3 minutes, so if you can just start wrapping up your comments. Thank you.
I'm wondering if students knew that their peers were uncomfortable with the situation. Do you think perhaps they might say, hey, you know what? Let me use the gender-neutral bathroom so that all of us feel safe. Equal rights, so that means everyone should feel and be safe. That is something I'm all for.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Galvin. I live at 275 Maple Avenue. I'm sure the district would also support young men who identify as girls to participate in their sports teams, which right now is not required, but there's a New York State guideline that would allow it and leaves it up to the district. There are other community members who agree with these guidelines. And they have said to me personally, your daughter can go use the single-use restroom if she isn't comfortable. And my personal favorite, if she doesn't want to play with and against boys, she should not compete on the team. So now we are to tell our girls, sorry, your rights to safety in a school bathroom and a fair competition in high school sports are less important than the rights of a male who believes he is a female. It's 2024 and our school leaders are still telling young girls to make themselves smaller for anybody and everybody. It is not equal rights when your rights infringe upon someone else's.
Sarah Cooney, 91 Hampstead Avenue. I am the mother of 2 boys, ages 12 and 15, and I wouldn't dream of walking in on them while they're in the bathroom. The reasons why should be obvious to every adult in this room, so I would like to know why this district thinks it's appropriate for girls to walk into male bathrooms simply because they identify as transgender, meaning they have a subjective ideological belief about their own body. This district alleges the New York Human Rights Law and the Dignity for All Students Act allows this. Emphasizing the words dignity and all, what section of the so-called Dignity for All Students Act requires that teenage boys suffer the embarrassment and indignity of being exposed to females while standing at the urinals? What section of that act requires teenage girls to suffer the embarrassment and indignity of having teenage males in a space where they are using menstrual products? The district is claiming that if students feel uncomfortable about the presence of the opposite sex in their single-sex bathroom, they'll just have to go and use the gender-neutral, single-occupancy bathrooms. This argument has an obvious hole in it. Transgender students who don't feel comfortable in the bathroom that matches their biological sex are not being told to go to use the gender-neutral single-occupancy bathroom. They are being told they have the right to enter the bathroom of the opposite sex, simply because they identify with being that sex. So one group of students gets 2 choices: their typical bathroom that matches their sex, or the single-occupancy bathroom. Transgender students get 3 choices: the bathroom that matches their biological sex, the single-occupancy bathroom, or the special privilege of entering the bathroom of the opposite sex because of their ideological beliefs. In allowing them to do so, you are stripping one group of students of their civil rights to same-sex spaces. Essentially, you are robbing one group to satisfy the demands of another group. In doing so, you are destroying single-sex spaces for everyone and ignoring issues of privacy and safety. There is no law, no matter what your attorney is stating, that enables you to do this. The guidance document that you appear to be using as an instruction manual tells you to do it, but this is not binding law. Your attorney confirmed that publicly at the board meeting last year in July 2023. That guidance document is an activist manifesto written by the trans rights groups listed in the acknowledgements on page 3 of the document. No other stakeholders, such as parents groups, religious groups, and students who are not transgender were consulted. When people are not given a seat at the table, their voices are not heard, and then so-called rules are made without taking into account the effects on them. We can see this happening now as students' rights to bathrooms assigned on the basis of sex are being stripped away in favour of trans rights. Your ill-judged actions have created problems for male students in this district and will continue to do so if you do not act to reverse this policy. If girls start reporting that boys are in their bathrooms and locker rooms, I can assure you, you will have far more people at these meetings.
Thank you. Okay. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items L2 through N6?
So moved.
Second? Any questions? All in favor? Aye. May I have a motion to approve the personnel action report?
So moved.
Second? Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Our next meeting is a public works session and is scheduled for November 21st at 7 p.m.